and anyone else that comes with a similar interest in the or maybe in the academic fraternity. Mainly it's for the benefit of students. I can tell you that. I can vouch for that. We see that students need some hearing or a discussion to vent out their inner feelings or concerns for multiple fields. So we took one topic in the previous discussion, we took another topic in the next discussion, and so on. We are now coming on to a very hot topic, which has been, prevailing in anybody's mind. So whether his goal is to, study next level of bachelor's or master's here in India or go outside. And if go outside, then where do we go? Well, there are many concerns in anybody's mind today. So as I said, this forum, we try to, do some hearing and discuss and do a discussion to vent out your feelings and concerns if you're a student or a parent. That goes true for parents, as I said, because we feel they play a critical role in most students' situation to decide on what their child's next academic step is going to be. Anyways, going now to the today's hot topic. I say that hot because it's really, really hot. He's been worrying everybody who's doing whatever he's doing, whether a professional or student. He has a small shop somewhere or he's going to the office. It's really a very hot topic. It's put everybody probably on jail today. The whole world, all the work, the whole world, all the work, whether you are a personal or professional, everything is getting COVIDized today, I should say. Yeah, see, I got to know a new word, COVIDization. So I just created a new word today. But that's truly the situation today, whether you believe it or not. COVIDization of every damn thing that's around us, every damn thing. So as I said, you got to buy a small, small grocery outside or any damn thing, any service or, product that you want to buy or get used to, you better get used to the parameters which are being set today by the governing authorities, the medical fraternity, the administrative authorities in the state or the country, everywhere. So it's really a very hot topic today, as I said. Something that has been worrying, especially for students who are considering to their dream countries for the next level of education as we come at, because we are concerned with education, so we directly come to the point. And especially if your dream country, that is USA, is on your radar. So here we go. USA definitely is one of the, I should say the name is enough. The dream country for all students to study, to live. It's a land of opportunities. We don't need to be thinking double about it. No doubts about it at all. If anyone thinks of USA as a goal, I think he's right. And I'm sure you guys will also agree to this. But look, here we are now hearing some really worrying news, I should say, of late, since last maybe 3 months or a little more. USA has been on the hot list, mainly for the COVID reasons, I should say. And slightly before that, it was due to some economics, I should say economic macro parameters, maybe concerning with jobs or visas mainly. So definitely, I really feel that there is an attention required here. There's an attention required here. So focused discussion is definitely desired. And what's the best way forward? That's why really we are here today. So guys, please have your queries ready. I'm sure you'll have many on your pocket, many in hand, many in diaries, many notes about concerning with what could be the next step to take. We'll take all your points besides what we already have with us. We'll try to take all your points as long as that fit into our gamut of this discussion. So here we have Dr. Ravi Srinivas, who's been kind enough to have himself go live in this discussion live from Houston in USA. We'll have him right on panel today. We will take some very critical points about studying in USA, what he feels like, what is going to happen. I'll give you a small introduction about Dr. Ravi, but first I'll request him to go live, please. Dr. Ravi, I invite you to go live, please. Please put on your video. Admin, are you hearing? Can you coordinate this, please? Oh, here you are, sir. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Rajiv, and thank you, Tasa Asia, for this opportunity to join you all today.
Hmm.
There is a little bit of a signal lag between where I am in Houston, Texas, in the US, and Mumbai. And
Hmm.
so bear with us if there are any latency related issues. But first thing is that I'm so glad that you're joining us today via Zoom and via Facebook Live. I can only see the folks who are with us via Zoom and 30 plus folks and a whole bunch more, I understand, via Facebook Live. I'd rather be with you in person today because these are matters that are very important, that are very significant, that are best spoken face to face. But given where I am and given the situation today, this is the best possible option.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Um, and thanks again for not only joining us, but also giving us some of your responses that were shared via poll. Rajiv, do share with us the responses summary when they're available. I'm curious about the data myself. So,
Small analysis,
really
Mr. Admin will do it right now, and sir, share it with you quickly.
wonderful. Good. Looking forward to that. So what I really hope is that the things that I have to share with you are helpful, and really that's the that's
Sure,
the
share with.
key purpose of what we are doing here today.
Mhm.
And whatever I have to share with you are based upon my own experiences here as an international student decades ago, but still as an international student from India, who I came here to study, and then I became a working professional for more than 25 years. And over this time, partly because of my own role and responsibilities, job related at a university, I have quite a bit of knowledge of on international education matters. To me, what I feel is that what use is the knowledge if it's not shared and useful to somebody else. So
Absolutely,
once
I agree
again,
with you.
thanks for joining, Rajiv. Over to you.
Dr. Ravi, very good morning to you. Very good evening to the Indian folks who are Indian guys who are logged in, who have logged into this session. I guess, Dr. Ravi, this is pretty early for you, maybe about 9 o'clock or 9:15 for you, sir, in the morning. Thank you for
Yeah,
taking
it
the
sure
session.
is. It's not early, man. We start early. We are up
Well,
and
morning.
about work related.
I
7,
agree, but that's early
7:30.
morning on a weekend, so that's why uh, that's why
Thank
this
you.
question. So hope you're done with
Thank
your
you.
morning walk and breakfast, everything, all the early morning stuff is done.
Oh, morning walk was wonderful. Did that today. And of course, with this webinar on mind, I was thinking about also what I would be sharing, and it's worked out well. Glad to be here.
Good, good. So here we have, sir, some of the students who are eagerly waiting for us to come on board on this discussion. How's been your health, your family, and work-wise? Do you face any challenge due to the new normal that we've been hearing about?
Well, I mean, people talk about the new normal, but I like talking about the next normal, right? And partly because things that you have heard in India, things that we have heard in the US about COVID had asked us to change the way in which we do things.
Hmm.
But then COVID is not going away. And more recently, and we'll talk more about it later on,
Hmm.
is given what's going on, everybody is on Zoom. I mean, it's like you want to meet with somebody, you're doing it by Zoom, and I guess it's a good thing.
Yeah,
I think even a better thing is that when I'm with you today and I don't have to
hmm.
wear a mask, and that's a really good thing too. So all
That's
is
right.
good. My wife is working from home, and
Hmm.
she's been working from home for the past 3 months, and we're doing everything pretty much the way that y'all have been doing in India, and in a way less restrictively so. We can still go anywhere we want to, but why would you want to go under certain circumstances?
Agreed. All right, sir. Thank you so much for a very quick brief of what happened today morning, and everything seems to be normal at your end, even though we hear only the negative news that floats around on CNN, BBC, or any local or foreign channels that we hook on to. But anyways, guys, the local guys in India and in the Indian subcontinent. Before we really start, let me give you a short background about Dr. Ravi. Dr. Ravi's CV and achievements are pretty huge, as he just mentioned that he's been 25 years of plus of exposure and experience in the US as a country. But let me just summarize it for you quickly. Dr. Ravi holds a PhD from State University of New York. He's done his MS from Baylor University in US. And originally, he's a science graduate from Bangalore University in India. So that explains his roots are very well in India and still still he has, like whether you hate it, whether you like it or not, he's got some Indian connection still left. Dr. Ravi is an expert in higher education and international education. He comes with 25 years or 2.5 decades of extensive leadership experience in many disciplines connected with education, international education particularly, and related fields. He's in teaching, higher education, administration, program management, high impact education practices, recruitment and admissions, domestic and international outreach, partnership building, and student services management. Well, a huge list of long list of achievements and affairs. And must confess, I had to actually read through it on my screen. I couldn't remember it, and he's doing it every day, every day. Uh, that's really wonderful, sir. Just to expand a little bit more about him, he's currently an independent consultant in the field of international education and is very active on leadership development committee and a trainer for leaders at NAFSA, the world's largest body for international education advocacy. I just mentioned the word NAFSA. Let me just take 10 seconds or 15 seconds to explain what this is all about. NAFSA, which was founded as an organization in the year 1948, just after World War II in the US. The full form goes as National Association of Foreign Student Advisors. It was formed to promote professional development of US college and university officials. It was formed as a responsible body for assisting and advising 25,000 plus foreign students who came to study in the US after World War II, so many years ago. Later, the NAFSA's scope broadened to take care of all student affairs very quickly. And today, as it goes by so many years later, it's got about 10,000 plus members globally, and it is a leading organization committed to international education and exchange and is working to advance policies and practices that build global citizens with knowledge and skills they need to succeed in today's interconnected world. Well, that explains why Dr. Ravi is very crucial and the most right person, I should say, to address education in USA as a topic today, especially in reference to the current situation. That gives me, that completes this short introduction. I'm sure the admin is ready with some, the poll analysis. And those who have not completed the poll, I request you guys to please fill in the poll form. I think the link is provided somewhere here. But without waiting for that, sir, I would just like to, commence the dialogue with you. But before that, just a message to audience here, just type in your concerns or questions on the chat box anytime, guys. We'll take it with Dr. Ravi during the discussion, during or after this discussion gets over. Don't worry. Over to Dr. Ravi, sir. Sir, we have been loaded with so many questions, actually, I should say, about studying in USA, especially in the current context. And some of these questions are very generic in nature, as if nothing has happened. And some are very specific to the current situation, the way it goes. So let's get right into the discussion with my first opening point for you, sir. USA, I should say the name is enough, as I said earlier, when it comes to study, career, or an overseas settlement dream, I should say. It has remained as a preferred destination or a first choice for anyone with that ambition, whether it was me and you so many years ago. And I'm sure any student who has an ambition to go abroad, the first thing that comes to his mind is USA. No two opinions about it. In fact, India was gifted with the language of English by the British. And that is one point why the English-speaking countries have remained on the highlight for every student who wants to go abroad, and USA being the first one. So with that be the introduction question, sir. Why do you think we are right? Is that good enough is every student right, or you have some points supporting or negating this, sir?
Well, I would say that generally speaking, United States is still the preferred destination for students from all over the world. So if you look at some data, recent data that's available as of the last academic year, which ended about a month ago, suggests that there are about 1 million international students in the United States. So it's about 10 lakhs of students in the US. Now, compared to 20 years ago, you only had 4 lakh international students, and now you have 10 lakhs. So you can see 2.5 times increase over the last 20 years. And during this time, they have other countries, there are other countries who have come up to compete with the United States, Australia, the UK, and so on and so forth. So of the 10 lakh students that are there in the US, a million international students in the US, there are about 202,000 from India. It's about 2+ lakhs. And just to think about it, we only had 35 students from India about 20 years ago in the United States,
Mm.
right? So from about 35,000, the number of Indian students have grown to more than 2 lakhs, right? So India is the second highest sending country when it comes to total number of students. And in case you want to know, number one is China, and there's no
Of course.
surprise there.
Of course.
But the key thing is that the total number of students coming to the US from India has doubled in the last 8 years. Now, in that number, we are not including those who are coming to the US on work visas from India, right? These are just students coming to study as full-time students only,
Mm.
right? And so, so Indian students still, like others, do prefer coming to the United States. And keep in mind, Indian students have been generally very successful in their studies and even beyond that in their careers. So the potential for future success is the reason why US has remained a preferred destination, not only for Indian students, but also from those outside India. Now, one other thing to keep in mind is that no matter what you think it costs to study in the US still offers the best return on your investment of both time and money.
Agreed, 100%. We are convinced that way, sir. But let's go to the main topic today. We are expected to address three critical points on this: the myths, the challenges, and the opportunities attached to studying in US. So we have a first question coming up on the myths. Um, the students definitely feel, and they know it, even it comes from directly from you too, that we are convinced USA is the choice or should be the choice as a first choice for anybody. But people really have, I mean, if they apply for it, some students feel the chances are bleak getting admissions and distant sometimes. So is that true? The chance, I mean, getting admissions into US universities or institutions is difficult or has some challenges attached to it?
Well, let me give you a direct answer first and then an explanation. The direct answer, the really simple answer is that this is not true. Granted that circumstances have changed, resulting in the prospects for certain students changing, but nevertheless, overall, this is not really true. But let me add, I really want to think about why this could be the case, why this view prevails. Now, when you look at international student enrollment in the United States, it has declined in the last 3 years, and it has declined by about 10%. Now, you can blame different people or what, for that, including the president of the United States, but, it is much more complex than that. Nevertheless, there's been a 10% decrease overall. When it comes to India, what we have seen is that there's a decline in the number of graduate students coming from India. But there is quite a bit of offset that has happened whereby there are more Indian students coming here to pursue undergraduate studies, that is to pursue a bachelor's degree. Okay. Some of the reasons why perhaps there's been a decline is that better universities are definitely getting more selective in their admissions today. Okay. And so they're not necessarily accepting all applicants from India simply because there are applicants from other countries who may have equal or better credentials. So there is an issue of trying to balance your international population with students from different countries and not just one country or a particular region. The other thing is that we know this, and it has always been true. Indian students are rather cost sensitive in that there is an expectation of greater financial aid, especially in public universities, what we call the government universities in the United States. Because of budget reasons, there has been a decrease in the funding that's been available for all students, both domestic US students as well as international students. And so that's another reason why there is a decrease in the total number of international students. Okay, and then of course there is this other big issue, which I'm sure we'll address later on, is about visa denials. Well, it's very clear that visa issuance and criteria have become more strict, but we'll talk about that later.
So you really feel that the dream is not distance, the chances are good for any student who wants to get into US. It's not difficult at all. It's just like
Um,
difficulty probably is at the same level as any other country.
I would say that yes, definitely that is the case, and I'm sure we'll talk about some specifics later on.
That's right. That's right. One of the next question, comes from the one of the biggest myths that the students, international students, have is that getting admission, getting once they receive the admission into a U.S. university, their life is set. What's your take on that? There's no more struggle left for them. So the only struggle that these guys need to do is to get admission, and that's it.
I recall years ago when I came, when I had a I-20 from a US university and I was granted the visa, my parents' friends telling them that, well, now he's all set. Well, it just so happens that my brother was already here in the US about a year or so before that. And they said, okay, your kids are all set. But I'm sure in some ways that feeling still exists. And I want to be very clear and say that this is really this is something that is still true today. Okay, it is in many ways more of a reality today if you think about just the opposite than it has been in the past. Okay, so to be very clear, what I'm saying is that in many ways, getting admission and getting an I-20 and coming to the US is really a first step in the process. Right? There are a number of other things that are necessary in order for you to be quote unquote set for life. Okay. And so, my own experience, and I'll tell you, I have had the opportunity to be the academic advisor and or teach international students from, I'd say, approximately 60 to 70 different countries, both on my campus and also in other settings. And the myth that was stated is something that many of the students themselves have told me. They've said that I thought all it meant was I just come here and everything would be fine, and it turns out that it is not fine. Help me.
Not fine. That's right.
Okay. So what could be two issues at the individual level? One of the biggest issues is financial. Right? When many international students don't really have a full understanding of what it takes to self-fund or partially fund an entire course. Okay, even back then when I got here, people would say, I just have enough money for the first semester and then everything else will work out. Well, that's not really the case. Finding jobs on campus is really very difficult. And even beyond that, they don't pay well. And let me give you a very simple example. At my own university, in my own department, I've hired international students. But when I hire an international student, I am paying 100% of the student's salary from my department budget. But if I hire a domestic student and certain types of domestic students, I only pay 25% of their salary. So from a budget point of view, it doesn't make sense for departments in universities to hire international students. But there are those jobs, no doubt about it. You can't count on them. That's my point. Even if you're working, it takes away a lot of time from academics. Something that I've also heard from international students is that a family's ability to support has changed. It could be because of the change in the value of the US dollar to the rupee or other currency, increase in real costs and increase in living expenses for students. Financial aid, how much of money an international student is receiving from the university can also change over time. It is not guaranteed for the entire duration, but for whom it is guaranteed, it's a wonderful thing. It is more of an exception than the norm. That's like a big change. So, my experience really is that, the financial issue affects more students than previously thought. And there is quite a bit of data that has been available recently to support that notion. And here's the other thing that I want to say. Another reason for not being set for life rather immediately is that meeting admission requirements to secure admission and come to the US, it is a lot more easier today than meeting the academic performance requirements at universities of all different kinds. And this is true for both domestic students as well as US students, I mean, for international students. For example, a domestic student had told me a couple of years ago, said that, my university where I worked at was not necessarily a top ranked school. But the student said, it is so much more easier to get admission into your university than to stay in the university, simply because of the academic requirements that can be really very tough. So meeting the academic requirements can be a challenge for quite a few students from India as well as from outside. The first semester is typically the most challenging for any international student. Why? Because they find that it is more competitive than they thought it would be. Right? Passing a class can be a challenge for some of them, but really not for most of students from India, but it can be. Even for those with a very high, CGPA, cumulative GPA from India, and also from and having high GRE scores and so on. Very quickly, let me give you an example. A student from India who I knew personally, I mean, he was a walking encyclopedia, and everybody would ask him questions. You ask him a question about anything, and then he would know. He scored on the 98th, 99th percentile on the GRE. And just because his friends were taking the GMAT and he takes the GMAT and scores higher than any of his friends. Very clearly, every room that he walked into in India, he was the smartest one. Well, it just so happened that he got into the physics doctoral program at MIT. And he could not stay beyond the first semester, and he, what we call, flunked out. He failed.
Wow.
And I got a chance to talk to him and asked him what was going on. And then he said, yeah, I was the smartest person around, but I am with all smart people, and it is more competitive than I thought it would be. And here's another student, who did, wanted to come to the US, did come here to do an engineer, to an MBA after an engineering degree, and extremely struggled with accounting. And MBA programs, accounting courses are what we call the gatekeeper courses. If it did not require accounting, total number of students pursuing MBA in the US will double or even triple in a year or two, right? And so, it's just not getting here, but after you come here, what you do and how you do, that whole series of decisions that you have to take that you never had to do as a student in India. And I hope we can come back to this question a little bit later on again.
Done. Fully convinced about it. Yes, the life ऐसे set नहीं होती है, इतना आसान नहीं है. This is just an entry point. It's just like,
absolutely.
It's just like, a girl gets married to some khandan, but the marriage ceremony is only the beginning of it. Life starts from there. It doesn't end there. The ceremony is only a ceremony. It's just an
every marriage is like that. It doesn't matter.
Yes, you got it. Okay. Sir, you just touched upon a point which I would like to bring it here. You said about the visa denials. So this is one question which revolves around in everybody's mind, that USA visa is a big bottleneck or is a big hurdle that they need to cross. So would you like to mention for a couple of minutes as to what is this myth about? Is it really
absolutely? There is a lot to say in this regard. Please let me know when it's time to move on if I'm taking spending too much time here. But really, from my viewpoint, it should not be that big an issue. But from the perspective of students who want to come here, it is a big issue, like it was in my mind, because you start to worry about all kinds of things. So there are lots of myths regarding visas, and let me add this, for very, very good reasons. As I mentioned before, visa denials have increased. Okay, that is no doubt. And let me give you an anecdote. in relation to a group of students from India. Not too long ago, some of my friends who were in graduate admissions offices at about 4 or 5 universities said the following. If there is an engineering graduate from a certain state in India, and I shall not name it, and is accepted into a certain type of program, that individual goes for a visa interview, the chances of getting visa approval is about 10%. So I felt very strongly against what was said because this is a big generalization. But then, there was data to actually suggest that. Okay. Something to keep in mind is that just because you have an I-20 issued by a university doesn't mean that your visa is guaranteed for sure, right? And unfortunately, you're never really told the reason why your visa has been rejected. You might be told something, but that might not necessarily be the full reason. And many visa applicants whose visas have been rejected, applications have been rejected, they feel that the decision is very arbitrary. And let me tell you, they are right. And the thing is that even if you feel it's arbitrary, you can't appeal. Many times you go for a second interview, go through the process again, pay the high fees that are demanded by the US consulates, and you can get rejected again for a different reason. So something I'd like to highlight is that visa issuing trends can change. They do change. One can detect a pattern after a certain period of time when there have been visa approvals and or rejections. But
Okay.
let me give you from the perspective of a university, right? Because it might not be your fault. It might be the university you've been admitted to and got the I-20 from that's at fault. Here's the example. So a U.S. university, by the date, based on data held by the government, shows that about 150 I-20s have been issued for students from India over the last 5 years, right? Do the quick math, you're looking at approximately 30 I-20 on an average per year. But it then comes out that this same university has issued 50 plus I-20s in a given year.
Okay.
All of a sudden, this raises questions in the minds of US consulates. And the question is very simple. It has nothing to do with the applicant. It has nothing to do with the excellent credentials that the applicant has. The question is, can this university really support these many international students, and especially from one country? And they seem to take those kinds of things into consideration,
So,
right?
sir,
And there's some other issues, right? For example, answers given by the applicant are not necessarily convincing.
right.
Many applicants are hard pressed to say, why do you want to go to this university? Why do you want to go and complete this particular course? And sometimes there are some real issues that says that the visa consular official is not convinced that you can be successful at the university. So it can be rather very subjective, and the list is really endless. Main point to say here is that preparation for visa is actually as important, and in some instances even more important, and the effort and time you spend on it can be more than what you spend in applying for admission.
Okay.
Rajiv.
Okay. So what you're trying to say, we understood and appreciate that you've been pretty truthful about this, that there are, that this is more or less correct in anybody's mind. But students are still advised to, have accurate documentation available with themselves before they do any, they are supposed to, certainly not supposed to lie. They're supposed to not fake anything before they present their papers or documentation online. So that's one thing which is a strong advice which goes to, at least from our side, it goes to everybody. But there's something which we don't have any control over. Thank you so much. Um, I'm getting a signal from the admin that the poll results are available and they can be shared anytime. But
Excellent.
before he does that, I just have one quick question, sir. I think this will be pretty quick to answer from your side. This is about the 16-year education criteria for masters. coming from the Indian zone. So, you know that India has a 10 plus 2 plus 3 system of education, which means 10 plus 2 is high school or 12th, and 3 years of bachelor's typically. I'm talking about the non-engineering students. That is a typical BSc, BBA, or something like that. So can he take up a master's easily, or the 16-year rule, education criteria rule, is strictly followed in the US? A very strong
Uh,
is for myth. That's a myth. We know that, but we just want you to clarify this, sir.
All right. So what, I mean, unfortunately, this will not be a quick response from me. First of all, I didn't expect this question. I tell you what, I'm very passionate about this issue, and I speak about this everywhere. And soon you shall see why really this is the case. Okay. There are many intelligent and deserving students in India who have completed a 3 years bachelor's degree, right? And they seem to think that coming to the US is not possible for them. And let me tell you, that is not true by far.
Okay.
Okay. Um, I myself have a 3 year degree, a Bachelor of Science, BSc degree from Bangalore University. And even when I applied, there were those who told me, well, you're not really going to get admission. You can't go in. And well, they turned out to be wrong. Okay, so something to acknowledge is what you've said, Rajiv, is also that, yes, it is true. US universities do not recognize generally a 3 year bachelor's degree from India as equivalent to the 4 year bachelor's degree from the United States. Okay, US universities do recognize a 3 year degree if you got it from a European university, because this is by virtue of an intergovernmental agreement known as the Bologna Agreement. Okay. But something I do want to tell you, and I really want to emphasize this, is that there are more universities in the US today that admit students from India and those with 3 year degrees. Just keep in mind that not everybody does. Some will accept a 3 year degree only for certain streams, for certain courses, right? It's not guaranteed across the board. If they do accept students with a 3 year degree, they're also looking at where did you study in India? What university did you get your degree in? Does it have an A rating from NAAC,
Nice.
the Indian organization that gives accreditation, right? And if you have a 3 year degree, do not be discouraged. Do apply. Remember that every single Indian student who has earned a bachelor's degree in India has to get his or her academic credentials evaluated by an outside agency, typically based in the United States. Okay, there are many agencies who will consider a 3 year Indian degree as equivalent to that in the United States. An example is that of WES, World Education Services, based in New York. I am in no way affiliated with them. There are many others who do that, but take a look at that. I would even say that if you have a 3 year degree, first get your degree evaluated. If it is deemed by this agency to be equivalent to a 4 year degree, then you stand a chance. But in every instance where a 3 year degree holder is considered for admission, other things are looked at too. What are the short courses are completed? For example, does the applicant have other employment experience? So just because you have a 3 year degree, or somebody in your family or a friend, don't discourage them. Do encourage them. The main thing is that seek help from professionals who know about such things, and it will be a lot more easier for you.
All right.
Rajiv.
Because most of the times, I understand that when the university is listing down the education criteria, academic criteria on their websites, the students refer to that and feel discouraged. They are not eligible, but that's not right. What you're trying to say, right? They can
Yes,
be.
there is some amount of reading
They
you
can
have
be
to do.
considered provided they have a WAS evaluation subjective.
So if there is a university that will not accept 3 year degree holders from India under any circumstances, they will tell you that. It will be listed as in the admissions criteria. If it is not listed, that is a good sign that there is a possibility, because these things are addressed on a case by case basis only. So it's not only the degree, but perhaps other things that you may have done that's part of your academic profile that will suggest that you are meritorious of admission.
Mm. All right, I request the admin to open up the uh, the poll results on screen for your benefit.
So Rajiv, you want to send it out to the people after the event so that they have this information also, so that we
Probably
can
yes.
move on?
Probably yes. This was just given for modulating the rest of this discussion ahead.
Perfect. Let's do it.
All right. All right. Let's go to the next question. Probably that's the last point under the myths that we would like to cover. So we can cover up quickly with this likely getting longish on the agenda today. So we try to wind up as with all points covered without compromise. Anyways, people believe that US colleges are not safe or friendly for international students. That's talking about risks. I think they're talking the students are trying to, doubt on the discrimination, racial discrimination being practiced, or because there's a lot of news sometimes which comes up. So what is your take on that, sir?
Okay.
Did anything happen to you when you studied so many years ago? What is the present condition?
Well, a quick response, but to also point that, well, very likely we'd be going beyond the time allotted, and very important questions were raised, and then I'll try to be brief as well. I think, people believing that U.S. colleges are not safe, definitely a myth category. Okay, my experience as a student has been generally very positive. I will not say that it has been 100% free, but nevertheless, that is something that I really did not have to worry a whole lot about. And when you think about discrimination, right? So you might be treated differently for a whole host of different reasons. And I think the key word here is difference. How do we work with people who are different from us, even in India? And there's a quite a bit of discrimination that tends to go on in India, especially with people from certain parts of the country. So wherever you have people, you're going to have divisions, and that's something to keep in mind. But why this has become an issue is that nationally there have been some cases reported in the media. Thankfully, they've been really very isolated. And in times of need, there is a feeling of the other, anybody different who is taking away my opportunities. And so there is a chance, where there is this reaction. Now, also, a lot has to do with the students, no matter which country they are from. We can't always spend time only with students from your country. Engage with the community. Be there, not just look at what you're getting, but what you can contribute to your campus and to the community where you're living in, and all shall be well. So that's my immediate response for that.
Good, sir. All right, we come to now to, I'm sure the audience is also eagerly waiting for the hot topic discussion to, get into the limelight. So we have a biggest challenge, which is a world challenge, international challenge, global challenge, medical challenge, whatever you say, the pandemic. That's a hot topic today. We now come to the agenda question, sir. All of the audience is eagerly, as I said, waiting for your answer to this. The pandemic has brought in the biggest challenge on practically everything that we do. So what's your take on this about what are the near-term emerging trends that you foresee given the macro uncertainties that have emerged?
Well, I'm glad that you posed the question as macro uncertainties, simply because you have to look at uncertainties in your home country as well as the uncertainties in the United States. So, for example, uncertainties in the home country, even if you have a visa to come to the US in 2020, and then you do have that, classes that are going to be face to face, do you have the flights available? Do you have the money that you thought that you would have available to fund a portion or whatever else of your study? But when you think about the US in general, so the trends are really very disturbing. So initially when it came to COVID-19, Most of the cases were in the New York area and in the Northeast. Generally speaking, California was also an issue. Now you see that, especially in the Northeast, in New York, New Jersey area, number of cases have declined quite a bit. But when it comes to states like Texas, Florida, Arizona, cases have increased. So when you look at the national numbers, for example, yesterday's data suggests that 60 the 60,000 people have been diagnosed additionally for COVID-19. They have been diagnosed positive. They tested positive. I would say that don't let those numbers scare you, right? And as has been said, including by the president, you do more testing, you're going to get to know more about cases. That's for sure, right? And so the prevalence of COVID and the resurgence, if you will, is not uniform all over the place. Okay, 20 miles from where I am, I'd be very more concerned than really where I am. So even small distances can involve a greater level of risk. The main thing that you want to look at is what are the conditions in the immediate area of the university where you want to go to. Okay, so now this is if you are really coming here for the fall semester. And if you don't have a visa, maybe it's too late to do that. But nevertheless, if you're thinking about spring semester, you have to keep two things in mind. There is a great level of state level and local level activity to help stop spread of the incidences of COVID-19. On campuses, there are lots of things that are being taken into consideration to protect the students. And in many ways, especially because of liability reasons, legal liability reasons with financial implications, universities that are going to open up for the fall are taking this really very seriously. So I would say, don't ignore what's going on. At the same time, don't get overly worried about this part. The best information that you can get about safety considerations is from the university that you are going to go to. And this information by law is to be made public. Many times, all you need to do is check on the university's website. You may not even have to write an email or make a call.
The students actually face multiple set of challenges today. The embassies are closed out here in India. The flights are disrupted or not flying. So plus we hear that the campuses are also not either not functioning at all or functioning in online mode. So really, I mean, this is like multiple
given
things
the
which are
location
there in
now.
students' mind.
Yeah, given the location, if universities are functioning normally with both students and staff on campus, and everybody's practicing, social distancing and things like that. Something to be very clear is that the consulates are not going to be open in time for anybody who does not have a visa to come to the United States starting in August or September. That is very clear. That has passed. And recently there's been some indication that especially in India, consulates are going to reopen with visa appointments, especially starting with students sometime in October. So, keep track of that.
I think there's a very critical question that has come to me. And I think you're the best person to answer this. As a parent, he's a parent, I think. He doesn't want to send his ward now, given that there are pathetic news all around going on. And he's right, I think. So everybody is worried. The student himself, their parents, their all relatives, everybody is worried. So even if I'm fully convinced on everything else, but this challenge, I don't want to face. I don't want to face. I don't want to put there's a fire out there. I cannot have my child step into that.
Well, if you have the option to take online class.
Sorry, let me complete this. I'm adding something of my own, actually. Plus,
Go ahead.
The recent, just a few days ago, in this week itself, there was a new policy that was declared open by Donald Trump, who is the president of US, for either cancellation or suspension of visas. So, of F1 visas particularly. So, sir, how do you explain of what is the guidance given to the students in this case?
Okay, so two things have happened recently. One about 3 weeks ago, which mainly affected those with H-1B visas and the process related to that. Clearly not something we need to look at today. But just last week, there was this announcement that came out that all students who are going to be taking only online classes at US universities will have to leave the country within 30 days and go back home
Right.
to do the online classes. Now, universities have been given until July 14th, which is pretty much next week, to communicate to the federal government whether or not they're opening up their campuses for in-person classes. Okay, that's what they have been asked to do. And honestly speaking, many universities are not ready to make the decision, but they have to.
They have to.
Okay, so if you are looking at coming to the US for the fall semester and your university says you can take in-person classes, do it, despite what is being said. I would definitely encourage that. There's no doubt about it. Okay, but if it's only online and you are planning to come here for a master's degree, well, think about it. Maybe it's better to postpone your entry to maybe spring semester. If you're going to come as if you are starting as an undergraduate student, take your first semester online, and that's really not going to be an issue as far as I can see. Okay, so a couple of personal examples. One, I have a son who is studying in a different state in Pennsylvania, in Philadelphia. He's not been home for over 6 months. And we are okay with him continuing his studies because given the risks, we understand what's going on. I have a nephew who is going to complete a degree in Germany and wants to start in the US. The advice I gave this nephew is the same as what I told you. You're coming for a graduate degree, try to defer your admission to spring. Okay, and so there are ways in which you can manage that.
Yes, sir. That's I think that the message is pretty clear to all the students and the parents who are attending this session. By the way, we are just exceeding on time limits sometime. I think we're going slower by 20 minutes or so. I request, I'm sure the session is going interesting enough for all of everybody to remain in the discussion. Say yes on Zoom chat or Facebook chat, and then we continue with the session. By the way, just a reminder to everybody, although everybody must have guessed in the beginning, that this is part 1 to the series where we are focusing today on the study part. On part 2, which comes in next Saturday, we will have Dr. Ravi once again speaking to us on the career prospects and how they will change or how they will get taken care of during the in the post-pandemic era that we are living in today. We are not ending with the question. We have multiple set of questions ahead with us. But before we do that, just I request everybody to put in a small word there. Yes, you are interested to continue. Just say yes in the chat box. That will give us the leeway to continue. Good. We have multiple yeses coming in, so I think we can continue, sir. And we come to the next question, which is something to do with the opportunities still existing, as everyone believes. The US gives it to everybody. USA definitely is the best destination for all students. We were always convinced that it is right. It's the right feeling. It's the right thought. And you've said it many times during this discussion also, sir. What are the current degrees or course options that students should put on radar? Do you have some ideas to this?
Yeah, I have a very quick response to it. There are those courses, there are those programs in areas that are considered to be hot. Okay, so these hot fields are typically in the STEM areas, the science, technology, engineering, mathematics areas, and also computer science. Okay, and then you can see, that information is readily available. So if those areas are of your interest, take a look at that. I think a better question would be what areas would not be two good choices today? So for example, having a generic MBA might not be a good option. Having a generic master's might not be a good option. What do I mean by that? You will still get a good education. You will still learn a lot more than if you were to pursue the same in most other places. However, your prospects for the future could be perhaps limited. So it might take more work on your part to make sure that you are seeking admission into a program or into a course that better meets your needs, not immediate, but also for the future. Because the number of domestic US students pursuing an MBA has declined by more than 35-40%. Okay, so even domestic students are not seeing much value in a generic MBA or even in a generic master's in engineering degree. Okay, so keep that in mind, because having a generic degree might also perhaps affect visa related things and career prospects in the future.
Okay, sir, you have to excuse me. There are questions which have come up, but they're connected to the previous answer that you gave. So I have to jump back to the previous question, if you don't mind, sir.
Sounds good. Let's do it.
All right, fine. You just mentioned about the F1 visa suspension for future students, but I think there are people who want to know, there are existing students presently in the US. How will their visas be impacted, and how will their OPTs be impacted, etc.?
Okay, so let me take the second part first. At this point in time, even if a continuing student, were to complete coursework for the fall semester online, it will still be considered the same as taking it face to face as far as student status is concerned in relation to OPT, which means nothing changes, you're still taking classes online. Okay, but the difficulty is that you may be actually having to require to return home because all of your classes are online. This is no fault of the student, absolutely, but it is just the circumstances that as of today, that is what the government guidance is, that they have to leave the country. Where they go, that's a whole nother story, right? But they have to leave the country within 30 days of the official start of the semester, which means they still have some time, and hopefully there would be a change in the policy, right? Because F1 requirements are that no more than 25% of your classes can be taken online. So in the case of anything more than 25%, then you can't be physically present in the United States. And that is the issue. Unfortunately, this should not have happened, but it has happened. And I think this will not remain, this will change. I am very optimistic when it comes to this that it will change. But will it change in time that it is beneficial to students is something to be seen.
Good. Sorry, I had to jump back to the past question because we
No
just
problem.
came through that, and we had to, we cannot be leaving that open. All right. One more point, which is a very critical point that students would like to know about the opportunities, is how should one get ready academically? I think this is something to do with the readiness platform they want to put in their mind. Within that, the sub question becomes, what are general admission criteria? If you can just mention for US institutions, it would be good. We start that way.
All right, let's do it very quickly. So every single university, no matter what course they're offering or program as we call it, will have clearly identified admissions criteria. So these are usually the general criteria that applies to all students. The only special thing for international students is that you have to have your TOEFL or your IELTS. Otherwise, most of the other requirements are the same. Financially, of course, you have to show that you have money too. But other than that, it's essentially the same. And just because you meet the minimum requirements doesn't mean that you're guaranteed admission. And the reason is that the evaluation is done rather holistically. So established criteria are really used as the first cut to shortlist applicants. So anything that you feel that a university needs to know you as a person, I would say you must really definitely include that. Include any co-curricular or extracurricular things that you have done, and find a way to convey that, usually through a resume or a CV, whether it's asked or not asked. Make sure you give them enough information. Mainly universities are looking at, do you have the potential to succeed at our university in the program that you've applied for, in the course you've applied for, and how can you add value to other students who are going to be in the program while you're here. So it goes both ways, and universities pay attention to both of that. Of course, your qualifications are primary, but nevertheless, it's both of that. So, I would say in terms of preparation, I would say very broad and holistic preparation is necessary. Go beyond your academics. Are there co-curricular things that, co-curricular, what's an example? You're an engineering student. Are you a member of a student engineering club? Have you participated in local competitions? Have you won any awards? Extracurricular, volunteering, those kinds of things. They may not have anything to do with your studies, but those would be good things to have as well. Um, and the thing is that if you have only a year before you're applying for admission, that means you have less time to broaden your experiences to include and showcase. But if you have 2 years or more, you have more opportunities and more time to do the same thing. But nevertheless, just what the admission criteria are stated are not going to be enough for admission.
Coming to one of the questions that emerges, actually, I pick up one word you said, holistically. So when exactly should student, think about his preparation or readiness holistically, which means mentally, academically, financially? How soon should he start? If
Well, there's some things that are part of your academic profile that you cannot change.
hmm,
Okay, but there are some things that you can do in order to strengthen. So you look to see what can you do in the time that you have to strengthen them, right? What other skills that you can gain, maybe through some kind of a short course that you can take separately as well. Okay, when I really feel that non-academic achievements as a whole are quite critical to not only success as a student, but also success beyond that. Okay.
okay, so the non-academic achievements, of course, everybody is trying to look at the basic CGPA scores, which is academic scores, and the basic test preps like GRE, GMAT, IELTS,
Yeah,
etc.
those are normal,
Absolutely, those are
GRE,
normal.
GMAT, TOEFL, IELTS,
Exactly.
or whatever else.
The non-academic achievements, you mean to say the memberships or something like somebody's trying to check, I've done this immersion, will that work? Or internship, will that work?
Oh, absolutely. Oh, internship and immersion experiences are absolutely crucial. Now, your immersion or internship experience can be with an organization that has nothing to do with your studies.
Hmm.
It can be an advocacy organization, it could be a social service organization where you have devoted certain amount of time and energy for a few months,
Hmm.
solely, and whereby you have gained certain things, and those would be very valuable as well.
Those will be very valuable. All right,
So
great. Yep. Yes, sir. Sorry. Sorry.
So Rajiv, I want to turn the tables on you, right? And when I agreed to do this webinar, you had shared with me what TASA Asia, your company, really does for prospective students, and I'm very happy to hear that. But really, for an individual student, what does TASA Asia actually do?
Thank
And
you.
does a prospective student need somebody like your organization?
Actually, that came up as a poll result also some time back. But thank you, Dr. Ravi, for a wonderful session. We had a very good quiz sort of thing with you. And we'll continue this discussion with you on the next segment. But before that, since you've asked this question to me about what TASA Asia can contribute to students' life to maintain his goals steady. So thank you. I'll try to take this question one by one. Um, the role that TASA Asia tries to play is actually very diverse. We try to, commence our roles from pre-admission to post-landing sometimes, So you just mentioned something, for example, about the internship programs, the immersion programs. These are some programs that generally students, either do not know. So it's something to do with awareness or something to do with availability or addressability or from where do the students take it. So we actually get into a very holistic role, I should say. We start, if a student approaches us, we start with student profiling, which is based on the desired parameters by the student, which very rarely any agencies such as us will do. So we do not, get influenced with anything in particular what the student says, and we give him choices based on the parameters set by him. That could be something to do with financials or academic relationships, or academic credentials, etc., and try to meet up with the goals that he set for himself. That's a very tricky thing to do. but we try to achieve that in a quickest possible time for each and every individual that comes to us. And the basic advantage of the students approaching us is that we bring in we bring in a diverse range of universities from over 25 universities, 25 countries, and with larger share coming from North America, which is where the topic today is, that is the US. Mainly, it is a process which is applied to suggest a college depending upon what fits your requirement. So that's where we play a very critical role. So when you have a financial requirement that's limited, your suggestions go different. Otherwise, if you have to go to a ranked university, your suggestions go different based on your academic credentials. These suggestions may go different. Sometimes we also suggest, something like what we call it as a program step-up chart for you. So it's not one; it will be a set of programs that will be suggested for you. So that's a proper counseling or a consulting or advisory that goes behind suggesting for every student that approaches us.
One of the things that I've noticed is that, let's say for the program that course I pursued in the US, back then I had maybe about 20, 30 choices. Today, if I were to look at it, there are 500 choices in the US. How does TASA Asia help in trying to figure out which one is a better option for me?
Yes, coming from basic statistics, you mentioned some, I'll mention some more for the benefit of students too. There are something like 4,500 choices of institutions in the US alone. And each of them, sometimes will be having 30 programs to 3,000 to 5,000 programs in so many different institutes in certain program lines heard of and many program lines never heard of. Example, wine management or agriculture, masters in agricultural farming and things like that. People don't even, agricultural engineering, that is, many people have not even thought about it, that this could be a line of, next step up for them. So what exactly is the most right choice for them? The students are either confused or do not know that this kind of a thing also exists. So we try to bring in those choices on his table on a piece of paper and give it to him. It's a very difficult choice, but we look at the academic credentials, his goals, and suggest what is right for him and fits his financial bill in mind, which could be borne by him, by his parents, or sometimes alone. So you can be given a choice of region. Where does he want to go in the US, or programs with a step-up formula, and carry some kind of a career orientation that he's got laid out for himself.
Well, thanks for your answer. I think it's a very tough thing that you all do, and I'm sure you do it well. I want to add my own thanks to the audience and apology for keeping you over time. I hope it was worthwhile, and you'll join us next week.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Ravi, and all the audience who's been kind enough to be on board on panel this Saturday. It's Saturday evening, so let's spend the same time, same level of depth that we get into. It was really nice having you, sir, on board. We'll see you next week again, same day, same time, Saturday, 18th July 2020, 7:30 p.m. India time. I repeat, for everybody on board here, I request you, everybody, to be with us once again, Saturday, 18th July 2020 at 7:30 p.m. India time. Thanks a lot. Audience, please be with us next time. We continue our dialogue with Dr. Ravi once again. Hot topic for next week shall be USA as a career destination post-pandemic, challenge, myths, and opportunities, part 2 and concluding part. Goodbye to everybody, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.